everyone, and welcome back to Top Marketers, the multi housing news podcast where we explore the minds of some of the most exciting marketing specialists in the industry. I'm your host, Corina Stef, and today we're cutting through the noise to talk about what good digital media performance actually looks like. From separating signal from vanity metrics to understanding when underperformance may be part of a smart strategy, this conversation focuses on how marketers should evaluate results in a landscape where attribution isn't always clean and success isn't always immediate. I'm joined by Aaron Donofrio, Senior Manager of Digital Media at San Diego-based Fairfield Residential. He oversees paid media strategy for Fairfield's national portfolio, guiding performance-focused campaigns across various multifamily asset types. Drawing on his experience in political digital media, he applies a data-driven, audience-centric mindset to multifamily marketing, turning complex performance data into actionable insights. He is also a team player, working closely with cross functional teams to deliver media strategies that are both impactful and closely aligned with broader business objectives. Welcome, Aaron. To start, can you walk us through your path into digital marketing and what drew you specifically to the multifamily space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've spent my entire career in digital marketing. I started off actually in the political sector, so worked for a number of agencies that were focused on ultimately getting officials elected to public office, as well as, statewide or nationwide coalitions and super PACs. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of tumultuous energy in the political sphere that I was kind of ready to take a leap away from. So I was super fortunate to fall into multifamily like so many others did. It just kind of happened by chance, but I knew very quickly that this was the home that I wanted. I started off at RPM Living, digging into their digital marketing as a whole, so focused on national accounts and anywhere from lease-ups to stabilized, affordable to luxury, tons of different asset types, and had a great experience there. Met a ton of amazing people, and then very recently moved over to Fairfield Residential. This is a company that's been around for 4 decades and really kind of met the goals that I was looking for in terms of understanding that this is a personal side of things. It's people's homes, and that's so important. So I've only been at Fairfield for a little over a month now, but really excited to be here and dig into their overall marketing strategies and hopefully evolve and refine things with the team that we have here.
Congratulations on your new role.
Yeah, thank you.
And what surprised you most when you first started working in this sector?
I think it's interesting going from industry to industry. There's really quite a different correlation, sort of, in how you're assessing performance and what your overall goals are. If you're working on one specific political campaign, you kind of just have that one goal, whether it's fundraising or brand awareness, and there's one main focus. Whereas in multifamily, there's so many different property types, so many different targets that you want to kind of go after and cater your strategies toward. So I love that part of this. There's a lot of nuance and opportunity to be strategic and assess things in a different way. But I think that's the main thing that sticks out is there's just a lot of different opportunity in how we evolve our strategy in multifamily. Whereas in the past, I've kind of just had my eyes on one bigger target that we're working toward.
That sounds really exciting. And early in your career, was there a moment or experience that fundamentally changed how you think about marketing performance?
Yeah, I think kind of leaning into that a little bit more. It's just, I've been in positions where I'm leading reporting calls with asset teams and on-site teams and everything in between. And I think there's a lot of differences between digital success and on-site leasing success. And what I mean by that is we can see a ton of green arrows in terms of clicks, impressions, click through rate, everything on that side of the digital platform. But if it's not correlating to leasing velocity and ultimately driving up occupancy rates, it's all for nothing. And I think that was a big shift that I had to have in my brain a little bit of, I'm not just focused on the digital side of things. I need to take a step back, look at the whole picture, work closer with on-site teams and understand, what is our overall goal here? And that's to drive leases. And through that, we need to shift our digital strategies. So more impressions, more clicks doesn't directly correlate to that.
And how has your definition of success in digital marketing evolved as the industry and the platforms themselves have matured?
Well, there's been a lot of change over the last few years in the industry, specifically just with AI coming in and how we utilize that. So I think overall, the success of that has evolved in how we look at things. But I would go back to the previous question of just, we need to look at the whole picture and really dive into leasing goals and assessing market trends. What is our ultimate velocity of where we're going? And I think where we're currently sitting in just digital alone, it's a really big piece of the pie. We need to get that exposure and reach as many people as possible, but we also need to hone in on that audience that we're targeting and really refine our tactics on that side of thing.
Now that you mentioned AI, do you think that the industry has kept pace with the evolution of things?
I think so. I would say platforms, specifically in the digital side, are evolving with it a lot. 3 or 4 years ago, we didn't have certain channels that we can leverage the way that we do today that really do rely heavily on AI. There's even reporting platforms now that will implement AI to offer recommendations to asset groups and property managers on that side as well. So there's a lot of growth. I think the multifamily industry is keeping up. But the thing that I'm happy to see is that there's still a lot of human interaction in between because this is a personal thing. It's talking about people's homes, and that is a really big decision for the consumer. So I think it's important that we keep that human to human side of things alive and well within the industry.
Now we're talking about humans, of course, but I would love to get into the more technical kind of things, such as defining good performance. And namely, when you evaluate a digital media campaign today, which metrics do you rely on most to understand whether it's truly performing?
I think qualified lead volume is super important and something that needs to be a bigger part of the conversation. Focusing on cost efficiency is super important, of course, but if we are driving leads, they have to be qualified. And that's kind of goes back to that taking a step back side of things. And having a bunch of clicks and impressions is great, but if the leads that are coming through the door aren't qualified, then what's it for? And I've seen some campaigns that are declining in click through rate, but you're seeing improvements on the side of leasing velocity. And if the dashboard shows that the arrow's going down, that's okay as long as you're meeting those overall leasing goals.
Right. And are there metrics you only look at in combination with others?
I would say they all kind of matter in combination. Cost per lead or cost per conversion is pretty meaningless when you're not looking at tour rates and those on-site metrics as well. So I think that's the beauty of it. They all work in conjunction. It's just a matter of understanding, what levers do we need to pull to drive certain metrics in the right direction.
Which vanity metrics still get too much attention in multifamily marketing, even though they don't always reflect real business impact?
I think if you're looking at a digital dashboard, you're going to see a lot of different numbers overall. And as I've said, they all work together in conjunction as a bigger piece of the pie. But, in terms of vanity metrics alone, I think impressions and click through rate are really big ones that you'll get people kind of hung up on from time to time. But more impressions does not equal more leases. And I think that's something that's really important to hit hard on in those reporting conversations with asset managers is we almost want less as long as it's more targeted, right? So hitting a bigger audience isn't always good if you're not reaching the right people. And I think that's where it is on our side as digital marketers to be aware of those things and kind of, if we can, give a heads up and say, we're refining our strategy, we're targeting a little bit tighter now. So we're going to expect to see a drop off in impressions or clicks, but it's all for the greater good of hitting that right audience of people that are looking within the market to lease at your property.
But weirdly, people are still sticking to them, to vanity metrics, I mean. Why do you think they're so hard to move away from? Do you think it's habit or are they ever useful in the right context?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they stick around because things like impressions or clicks are easier to understand and easier to report on. You don't need a ton of digital media experience to understand. Like if I click on your ad, that correlates to a click in a dashboard. And I would also say on the flip side of things, platforms are pushing those. There's a reason that they're at the top of all the lists, whether you're in Google Ads or Meta or whatever it might be. That is always going to be a focal point of what's being reported on, probably because of that understanding side of thing. But I think that they're more directional. They're less diagnostic in terms of what we're looking at. But that's probably why they stuck around as long as they have and will for the foreseeable future.
You've worked across a lot of campaigns and asset types. What kind of project do you think best showcases how nuanced good performance really is?
I think lease ups are a great indicator just because you're kind of starting completely from scratch. Oftentimes, there's no domain authority, so your property doesn't have any search history, and you really are working with a blank slate, both on site and on the digital space. And that's great because it provides a lot of opportunity in terms of what you can do. But it definitely does show the nuances overall because you're going to have to shift your strategy frequently and be very flexible on the fly. You'll go through an immediate learning period within your campaigns, and then from there, again, honed in on what the audiences that you want to be targeting. There's also going to be a lot of shifts on site. You might see a larger concession for the first 6 months, and then that dials back, and suddenly you're maybe missing out on the concession shopper that we typically talk about. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but that's kind of what makes it fun. It's not a sit and forget type of strategy. We need to adjust as the property moves up. And then, of course, that also means on the digital side, budgets will be shifting a lot. And, we try to figure out how to maximize each dollar to the most.
And how do you differentiate between a campaign that's underperforming and one that's doing exactly what it's designed to do, just not in an obvious way?
I think in order to kind of understand if it is underperforming, what is the goal or intent behind it? So if we're looking at sustainability, because we're at 97% and the trend is showing that we're going to kind of maintain over the next 90 days, that's really important to understand versus a property that needs to generate more leads and ultimately fill in more units. So I think that's a huge part is understanding what it's designed to do and then ask yourself, pricing competitive at the property, is there a lot of demand within the market? So you kind of have to ask those questions to better set yourself up for success within the digital side.
In what situations is underperformance acceptable or even expected within a broader digital media strategy?
I think it's dreaded, but we talk about this a lot within the multifamily industry. There is seasonality that definitely will affect things, and that's not just on-site performance. We see it within the digital landscape as well. So it's tough. We've got to kind of rise above and be creative in those times, whether that's, refining your ad copy or strategy, targeting, whatever it might be. But I think the more ongoing time when you would see underperformance, and it's a good thing, is we need to be doing more tests on the digital side. And what I mean by that is trying out different ABs of this is one campaign with this ad copy, this is another with different, and seeing which one performs best over a 90-day period. So that kind of short-term inefficiency will ultimately lead to longer-term stability within your campaigns, which obviously then translates to long-term success on site.
And how should operators think differently about performance when they're running upper funnel or brand focused campaigns versus lead generation efforts?
I think that's where kind of the human side is super important, right? Is keeping that communication up. Myself as a digital marketer, working with various amounts of people, we need to be very forthcoming with what we're doing and what the strategy might be if it's shifting. So it is, we talk about the funnel all the time. It's super important to start it in there, look at the top of the funnel and work your way down because you might be pushing brand awareness right now. And that's going to be really important for the consumer that is maybe not in the market today, but will be in 6 months and wants to keep your property in mind. So it's all really important to work together. But I think that's where communication is super important is just keeping up that cohesiveness and talking through our overall strategies and what the landscape's going to be.
What's one of the biggest mistakes you see teams make when reacting to early campaign data?
I think over optimizing is definitely an issue that we run into. If you think of it like a snow globe, if you shake it too often, you're not going to see the clear picture. So, looking at 2 weeks of data really is not enough to make bigger decisions based off of. And I think that's super normal to want to move quickly, especially if you are dealing with a property that's seeing negative trends on site. You want to make a bunch of shifts and kind of have that knee jerk reaction. But it's important to kind of look at the bigger picture. If you've had a longer sustaining campaign, super important to look at what did we do in Q3 of 2024 versus Q3 of 2025, not just what did we do in the last 3 weeks. Because going back to those seasonality shifts that we deal with, there's just a lot of nuance that goes into things. So I think that's a big mistake and something that is getting better and evolving, but it's just really important to keep on that, especially as different platforms evolve and give us more options and opportunities to change things up.
And how do you strike the right balance between optimizing campaigns and giving them enough time to work?
Yeah, I think I would recommend giving it more time. So, minimum 4 weeks to really evaluate, assess, and make different changes in what you're doing. I think all that probably depends on what your spend is and what your volume that you're looking at is within the market. But algorithms definitely need consistency, and making those frequent tweaks can definitely harm your bigger goals.
How have platform algorithms changed the way you evaluate performance? Any project we're leading into the algorithm made a measurable difference?
I think kind of going back to what we were chatting through earlier with AI, it's a huge thing on algorithms. We're seeing channels lean into it a lot more, and it's not just on reporting, but even just how campaigns are set up. For instance, Google's Performance Max has only been around for 3 or 4 years, maybe now, and it leans super heavily on AI, but it's evolving a lot. So, adding in audience signals, rather than keywords is kind of what that campaign relies on. And I think it's a good thing, but we need to keep a close eye on that and just make sure that we're still delivering the strong results downstream that we need to see. But I definitely expect the algorithms to continue to update and change over time. So it's just something that we have to be aware of and keep a close, tight hold on as marketers.
If you had to simplify digital media reporting for busy property teams, which few indicators would you insist they focus on?
Definitely to kind of bring things back, I think the main things to focus on would be overall leads and then diving into lead quality from there, which would then lead to tours and overall probably your cost efficiency versus occupancy goals. So those three really in conjunction, I would say, are the most simplified to really see it a bigger picture. And then from there, you can make decisions and look at trends and figure out what part of the funnel do we maybe need to make a little bit louder than others.
And looking ahead, how do you think multifamily marketers will need to rethink performance measurement over the next few years?
We'll probably move with the industry toward blended metrics. So, what I mean by that is looking at your overall media space, so digital ILS, and then comparing that within market trends of occupancy, operations goals, pricing. There's so many different values that go into it, but rather than just focusing on specific KPIs per channel, I think kind of blending everything together in a big pie is really important. And that'll hopefully provide more certainty over time.
Aaron, I'd like to move the focus away from technical details and toward the human side of the story. I'm curious, what skills or mindset shifts will matter most in the future?
I think flexibility is huge. We're shifting a ton every day. Things are changing and we're being introduced to new opportunities, whether that's just on your website and how that's set up and adding virtual tours. I think COVID changed a lot of how we do what we do. So flexibility and an open mind is really important. And that goes back to where we can test things out and see, are we having a lot of success in a specific market or an asset type where we want to be making those changes and rather do that than have a cookie cutter campaign set up. So I think flexibility is really important.
Is there any other piece of advice you'd like to give teams trying to future proof their strategy?
I think the main thing to pull away from everything here is just we should be focused more on intent and business goals and context more than anything else, taking a little bit less time to dig into mastering specific channels or platforms or those kind of vanity metrics as we talked about, but having those tough conversations and getting to know the overall intent of what we're trying to do would be the biggest takeaway moving forward. I would say just, keep having those conversations, making communication a priority. We in the digital space, especially in multifamily, have a lot of ongoing pieces that we're working on, and it can be really easy to get siloed and kind of in our own little bubble of just marketers. But having that people to person conversations and relationship is so important. So I think that's going to ultimately lead to your bigger successes as a marketer and ultimately your company as a whole.
Thank you for sharing all your expertise and encouraging words. It was really great to have you, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate the conversation and opportunity to chat with you.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in and spending your time with us. We hope this conversation gave you fresh insight into where multifamily marketing is headed. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform or on YouTube. Join us next time as we continue exploring how top marketers are reshaping the industry. Until then, stay safe, stay warm, and keep innovating.